How's it going, Positively Atheist? This is Eddie, coming to you, talking to you about an interesting subject today, death. I know this is such a flowery, exciting subject that many of you guys can't wait to hear this video. Of course, I'm just kidding. But I understand this is a kind of a morbid, dark topic. But I want to talk about it because I've had a lot of people ask me about my perspectives on the afterlife, especially being an atheist. People want to know, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think happens? And I have a couple of different thoughts that I want to put together for you in this video. The first thought I want to put together from my perspective is a bit of clarification. I feel like I have to do this in a lot of my videos because there is a lot of misunderstanding of what an atheist actually is. And all I can do is define how I use the phrase, and hopefully that will help in the conversation. So I would define myself personally as an agnostic atheist, meaning I am an atheist because I don't believe in a God, right? I lack a genuine belief in a God. And I'm agnostic because I'm not claiming to have any proof or anything that gives me that. In other words, I'm not going around saying I know there are no gods. I'm saying I don't believe in any gods, but I don't know whether or not there are any gods, right? So what that means is that I actually don't know what happens after we die. I am agnostic regarding heaven or hell. I'm agnostic regarding an afterlife. I'm agnostic regarding any other proposed idea, including reincarnation. I don't feel like that I can know that information. And personally, I don't feel like anybody else can either. And what I mean by that is we have had people who have had what we call near-death experiences tell us stories about what they believe they had seen. But we've never had anybody who's truly died to tell us what that really means. And I know what some of you are going to do. You're going to react and say, oh, yes, we've had people who have died and come back. They've written books. But those people haven't actually died. They are what we call near-death experiences. And we call them that for a reason. It's because while it is true many of them have had suspended brain functions, heart functions, body functions, vegetative states, I don't know if that really qualifies as being dead. I mean, the truth is that science has shown us that death is not just an event that happens, it's a process that happens. Death is happening all the time in your body. Cells are dying constantly and being replaced. And eventually bodily functions will stop in everyone. But that process is a lot more gray than many people have wanted to admit in the past. What I mean is that when you die, or the process of what we call death, is typically when your heart stops or when your brain stops, right? These are traditional terms that we use for it. But there have been a lot of cases that have shown that that's not necessarily the case, that there might still be underlying brain functions that are there that we just can't fully understand or assess in given situations. And the truth is, there are states in which we know somebody is truly, truly dead. And that is when you are a corpse, meaning when your flesh has rotted off your bones and your bones are left. I think that's a safe way to really say that person is truly, truly, truly dead, right? We can go a step back, which is late stage in the death process. The process called rigor mortis. Apologize for my pronunciation. And this is when your blood essentially turns into a solid rather than a liquid. That is also a great, not a great, but that is also a clear indication that someone is truly dead. Now, notice we've never had anybody come back from those circumstances, right? We typically have people come back when they are injured to the point their brains stop functioning or their heart stop functioning for a period of time, but they never get to that point where we could truly say that all of what was known as them, all of the brain functions were impossible to function. Now, I take this as solace for myself because let's be honest here, nobody likes the idea that you don't have an afterlife. Nobody likes the idea that death is permanent and that we may never see our loved ones. So, of course, this can be a very difficult thing for people to accept, and it was for me too. But what I had to come to accept is that I really don't know the answer to this. And for me to assume the answer is there is no God, there is no heaven for sure, I think is just as much an error as somebody who says that there is a God and that there is a heaven, because I don't think anybody actually knows. So I think the only reasonable position to have is to say, I don't believe, because I don't have enough evidence to show me that. And honestly, I really don't know. So I just live my life the best way that I can on this planet. The other point I wanted to make about this whole issue of concern for what's after this life, this part I don't quite totally understand, right? And there's actually two parts of this, which is, the first part is, look, some people will try to make it sound like that if there is no afterlife, if there is no eternal heaven or hell, that this life would somehow not be worth living. Let's face facts. A lot of people who walk away from their faith, they go through a serious depression because their whole life they have been told that their meaning and purpose comes from this higher power, and that in the end, things are going to be rectified or justified. They'll be reunited with loved ones, and that everything in this life will have made sense when that time comes. So when someone like myself, who's a non-believer, comes to the picture, people get very frustrated with that because they have a lot of hope wrapped up in their belief system and these things. So people get very frustrated and they want to know, how can you have hope for anything if everything doesn't go on forever? How can any of this have meaning and purpose if it doesn't go on forever? And to that, this is something I've never quite understood, but I will say this, like, just because something doesn't go on forever doesn't mean it doesn't have meaning and purpose. And I'll give you a great example. Have you ever had like a dinner that you have just absolutely loved, like had friends around? One time I had a surprise birthday party thrown for me, and had friends around me. We had drinks, food. The party was a great party, and I had no idea about it. But the thing is I never once during that party found myself depressed or frustrated because the party wouldn't last forever. I recognized that the party had a beginning, it had a middle, and it had an end. But just because it had an end doesn't mean that it was meaningless. And I look at life at the same way. Like, life is essentially a giant party. We arrive at a certain time. We go through experiences in their due time. And then there is a definite end at some time, as far as we can tell. Well, just because there's an end doesn't mean the life didn't have any meaning. And I think a lot of this comes from a really poor perspective of the first point I made, which is nobody really knows. And to assume that your life has no meaning because it doesn't go on forever, I think is kind of a silly notion, in my opinion. I mean, let's look at it this way. Where does your meaning and purpose come from anyways? I mean, let's look at a book as an example. A book has a definite beginning, middle, and end. And it's actually, if you think about it, it's the actual finite nature of that book. It's the fact that it does have that finite structure that allows us to actually give that book meaning. What I mean is this. Let's say you had a book that just went on forever. No beginning, no end. It just went on forever. Telling just everything that could be written in it is in it. In fact, there's actually a book online. There's actually a website online that has a never-ending book. Essentially, it auto-populates this book using sophisticated algorithms, and it just goes on. It basically has every single word that you can possibly have in every phrase in every order for eternity. So it just keeps going and going. The thing about if there was a book like that, could you ever say it had a meaning or a purpose? Could you ever say like, that was a great book, it was about X, Y, and Z? No, you really couldn't, because that book would be about everything. And like, it's kind of like the same thing with our lives too. If life just goes on forever, could you ever really have a purpose? Could you ever be like, that guy was known for X, Y, and Z? Or that guy did X, Y, and Z the best, or he was excellent at this and that or the other thing. I don't know if you could, because you'd have enough time to become the best at everything. You'd have enough time to learn everything and to reinvent yourself indefinitely. And so, ironically, it's the idea that everything goes on forever that actually, if you really think about it, lowers the value of what actually is going on in this life. Now, the other point of this I want to bring up is how little we actually do know. And what I mean by that is, and let me take a step back. One of the reasons why I don't get upset about this question, it doesn't bother me, is because I feel like the question is kind of a silly question in general. Like it's presupposing that one should be concerned about what happens in the afterlife. And I don't know if the logic truly is there. Here's what I mean. I honestly don't know what will happen to me 30 seconds from now. Like, I have no idea what will happen to me in 30 seconds or a minute from now or an hour from now. You know, sometimes your life can be changed in an instant, right? You can go from the bottom of the barrel to the top of the heap in an instant. And the same is true in reverse. You can go from the top to the bottom. You can lose everything instantly. And this is simply a fact that this can happen, right? Well, we all accept this as a reality. But notice how none of us spend every waking second concerned about this fact. Notice I have not one time been concerned like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me in 1 minute from now or 30 seconds, right? I've gone my whole life and never experienced that pressure of like being so concerned. Now, I understand sometimes we are going through a specific thing at a specific moment and we don't know the outcome and it's on our mind. But generally speaking, we don't spend our whole lives worried what's going to happen in 5 seconds. What's going to happen? You know, this would be a terrible life because you live your whole life in just basically a state of constant turmoil and fear, and you never have any time to actually enjoy anything like food or sex or money or traveling or friendship or love, because you'd be so consumed by your worry about the future that you'll never have an opportunity to enjoy the present. So the reason why I bring that up is because I don't know what's going to happen 5 seconds from now. So how would I ever presume to know what's going to happen at the day after I die, or the instant after I die? If you really think about it, that moment where you officially die, whatever that moment is, that's just another moment as part of your life. It's just another moment. It's another second that goes by. And what happens after that second is no more terrifying to me than what happens a second from now or at the end of this video. And if you think about that in that perspective and consider all three of those points, I think it might open your mind up to recognize that there's a lot of questions about this subject. And I don't know if there's any easy answers for it like we would want them to be. But that's okay. You don't have to worry about that any more than you have to worry about what's going to happen at the end of this video or what's going to happen tonight when you put your head down. You don't have to spend your whole life in fear and worry about what might happen. You can actually just take it easy. And as they say on the streets, YOLO, you only live once. as far as we can tell. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to this video and share it with a friend who is maybe struggling with this concept. Maybe you are. I'd love to hear your comments in the comments section and get some feedback from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Thank you.